Welcome back to the third episode of the Joy with Jax podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Stevens, and I'm excited that you're back. I'm excited that you're finding value from this and hopefully feeling inspired and energized. That's what I'm here for. So, I want to tell you about what you're going to experience and learn and take away from today's episode. Today's episode is 5 ways to attract a deeply connected relationship while saving time, amplifying joy, and staying true to you. So, what I'm going to do today is walk you through 5 of the most common problems, 5 of solutions that go with each of those problems, and actually way more solutions than that, because I'm going to be asking you a lot of questions in each solution section. And then I'm going to give you an action. So today's episode is all about understanding. It's about gaining awareness. It's about double tapping and gaining more clarity. And then it's really an invitation for you to forward the action, which means bring this into your own life so that you can cultivate change, which is what we all want to do, is create change that helps to align us better in our own lives and within relationships. So if you are listening to this, amazing. You're going to get so much out of it. But I want to really talk to you about who this episode is specifically designed for. So that way, if you are that person, you're like, okay, yep, this is for me. But you can also share it with other people who you know that it would add really great value to. That's my mission, is to give you resources, and then for really for you to be able to pay those forward as well, because we all need this support. So this episode is for anyone who's looking for better relationships, wanting to understand maybe what are some of the hangups and some of the hiccups that come with getting great relationships. And then even more specifically, if I had to dial it down even more specific, I work with a woman who's generally between about 30 and 45. She tends to be millennial. She might be a Gen X, but she's a single woman and she's highly successful. She's highly motivated, and she is likely in a pattern of overachieving, right? So she likes to do well at all that she does. She might be a superwoman, but she's also missing a key element in her life, and that's relationship. And so this guide is specifically designed for her to get what she wants in relationship. So before we dive in, I actually want to give you an invitation to go to my website, which is joywithjax.com/gifts. And you can actually download the guide that I'm walking you through today if you want to keep it for reference, if you want to kind of reference back to it for the questions. There's so much in this guide and I want you to have it. That's why I've designed it. So please go to my website and joywithjax.com/gifts and tap the give me love call to action, and you'll be able to get this guide. So let's dive in. The reason why I want to give you guys this information today is because it's important. It's because dating and relationships are highly personal and honestly very sensitive work, right? We're dealing with our hearts versus our performance. And I say that we're dealing with our most tender body, which is our emotional body. For those of you that have followed my work for a while, you might have heard me talk about this concept of the 4 bodies, which I'll also link an article in the notes to this. But overall, we have our mindset, our mental body, and our physical body. Those are more of our masculine energies. And then we have our female bodies, which are our emotional body and our spiritual body. And these are, again, more feminine, more flow. So think of the masculine bodies in terms of like how you think and what you do. And then the feminine is how you feel and what you know intuitively to be true. And so with dating and relationships, Again, we're dealing with our emotions, we're dealing with our why versus just our mindset, just our bodies. And so, as highly successful women, or if you're listening to this and you're a highly successful man, we don't always put it's a lot easier for us to pursue profession than it is for us to relationship. And the reason why is because with relationship, there's a level of vulnerability, there's a level of unknown, there's a level of things that we just cannot control. And that feels scary. Dating can be confusing, it can be draining, it can take up pardon the French, shit ton of time if you don't know what you're doing. And the result can be really heartbreaking, especially if you're someone who's living in the same patterns over and over. So I want you to know that with the right strategy and with the right energy and the right mindset and the right coach, the dating can be fun. It can feel joyful. It can be easy. It can be exciting. It can be fulfilling, and it actually is a path for growth. So here's my goal for you today is I want to support you in bridging the gap so that you can step into deeper and more meaningful relationships with a partner who treasures you and who respects you and who respects all of you. So I know a lot of people will just throw in the towel on love, right? They just say, it's not going to happen for me. My person's not out there. All these excuses of like why you aren't pursuing relationships, even though we know the science shows us relationships is the thing that makes us the happiest. So I know you're here because you're not a quitter. And I know that you're determined to find love. And we're going to help you with that today. And I want you to know that the first place that we look is like within ourselves. So I am just ushering you right now so much acceptance, so much love. I want to tell you that there is nothing wrong with you. You haven't done anything wrong. It's just about knowing more, knowing better so that you can do better. And that's what I'm here to do for you today. So I hear a lot of women, modern women that are heart-centered, that are like, where the heck is the playbook on dating and love? And I want you to know that I actually created that playbook, and it's my program. And it's a program that's for a woman who is feeling confident in her life and in her work. So in her performance, how she has shown up, what she has done, and what she has cultivated in her life. But she isn't willing anymore to sacrifice her life, her success, or dull her juicy shine for some mediocre relationship that doesn't add immense value. My program is designed to elevate your self-discovery, to really support you in aligning your energy to attract the love that you want, not the love that you've experienced in the past, but a love that's beyond that. So my desire for you is I want you to find a love that fuels your life, the loves that fuel your life. And in that spirit, that is why I want to share with you the 5 ways that you can attract a more meaningful relationship with actionable steps so that you right now, not at the end of summer, not in the fall, not when you get the next job, not when you lose that 15 pounds, but right now, how you can start magnetizing your bae in the right freaking now. Because it's not like all of a sudden someone just shows up one day and then everything's going to be great, right? Like in my first episode, I talked about the danger that comes with this savior complex, that someone's just going to come in and, rescue us from all of the mess, all of the shitty men that you've experienced in the past, or whatever your excuse is. No one's going to do that. You've got to do it for yourself. And so this guide, this episode is the way that you can start to do that right now. No more waiting. So if that sounds like you, I can't wait to share the rest of the episode with you. Before we dive in to the 5 different mishaps that are happening, I want to read to you a quote from one of my favorites, Brene Brown. And this quote is all about connection and how she defines connection. And so I'm going to read it to you. I define connection as the energy that exists between 2 people when they feel seen, when they feel heard, and when they feel valued, and when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So if that quote resonates, I want to remind you and I want to inform you that maybe in the past, you may have experienced relationships that were not aligned. And when I say aligned, I mean they were not matched. You weren't well matched or well suited with this other person because your values didn't align, your futures, what you wanted to create in the future didn't align. And that's amazing. All of that, all of those experiences, whether it's 1 or whether it's 100, I want you to consider those to be data. And that's what we're going to work with. And with that data, you can start to create a new and a different outcome. So if you're at home, I want to invite you to grab your favorite journal. I want you to grab your favorite pen so that you can take notes throughout this lesson, throughout this podcast, throughout this educational seminar. Because when you take those notes, it actually starts to rewire some things in your brain. The science says that when we merge the left and the right, that's when the magic happens. So there's something that's really special that happens when we do take notes. So I encourage you to do that to make the most of today. And if you're in your car, no worries, keep listening. I shared with you the link. You can always download the guide after the episode. I know it's going to give you a ton of use. So let's get started. So the number 1 problem that I see with people who are wanting relationship, but they're not really getting what they want is that you're not clear on what you want. That's the number 1 problem. You're not clear on what you want. And so the solution is to start to root into self-discovery. So I'm going to start to ask you some questions. We're going to get curious, and I want you to really think about these. It might be a good time for you to pause in between questions to really contemplate if you are in the car and you've got the time and space. But I'm going to ask you some questions to help you get clear on what it is, like why you want to be in a relationship. That's your job, is to understand why you want it. It can't just be like, oh, I want the relationship. It's like, for what purpose? The universe, God needs to know, well, what's the purpose that this thing will play in your life? Otherwise, you're not going to get it. So, number 1, why do you want to be in a relationship? Every time I ask this question, people are kind of dumbfounded. They're like, oh, I don't know. Why do I want to be in relationships? So everyone's answer is different, and you need to figure out for you, what is the purpose in which you would want to be in relationship, especially your dream relationship. If you are a single woman and you are searching for a partner, I want you to get clear on like, what actually does that dream relationship look like? Is there a meaningful purpose that's attached to your desire? Meaning, do you want to have a family? Do you desire to be a mother? Do you want to be a partner? Do you want to be a companion? So you get to choose what the purpose of the relationship is. And in order for you to attract something that is going to match what it is that you want, you have to freaking know what you want. So this is your call. Another question. What is going to improve your life once you're in that committed relationship with a partner? What's going to change? What's going to be easier? What might be a little bit more challenging? You need to get real with what this relationship is going to look like. I also want you to think about the feelings that you would like, the feelings that you're anticipating once you have this person in your life. Now, this is one of the most important questions here because we are actually wired to want, like, once we can say, this is how I want to feel, then our minds actually start to create the actions that go along with it. So getting clear on the feelings. So I'll give an example for me. What do I feel, or what do I anticipate? The feelings I anticipate once you have this dream partner. For me, it would be, I feel safe. I feel connected. I feel love. I feel like I can nurture someone and I can be nurtured. Those are some examples of like the feelings that you're anticipating. I feel like I can be settled. I feel like my life will be easier. These are the things that we want. So if I think, oh, I want my life to be easier, and I start dating someone and my life is more complicated, that's my answer. I've already done the work to understand how I want to feel. So if I go out there and I find something and it's not aligned, it makes a decision for me so much easier. It's also really important for you to visualize, like, what would Friday nights been like? What would Friday nights be like with this partner? How would you spend your time? Would you cook new recipes? Would you go out to dinner? Would you go to a bar and to a club? There's a ton of different ways that you can spend time together. So you getting clear on how is really important for you as well. So we've talked about the problem, not being clear on what you want. We've talked about the solution, the questions that allow you to get clear on what you really want. And so here's the action. This is something you can do after this podcast if you feel drawn and if it resonates, which is I want you to create some time for you to get really clear on what your vision is. This can be a time where you ground and close your eyes, and you're really allowing yourself to visualize already being in this relationship, visualizing how it's going to feel. What are the thoughts that you're having now that you're in a relationship? What are the words that you're saying, not only to yourself, but to your partner? How is it that you are showing up in this relationship? How do you show up in the world? How do you think about yourself now that you have your person? And knowing that this person is with you by your side, how do you continue to care for yourself? What are the ways that your partner cares for you? So I want you to grab your journal, note the visualization, download the guide, and I want you to note what it is that you saw. And a question for you is, do you feel like you are already prepped and primed and ready for this dream relationship? Or do you feel like there's some work that needs to be done? Do you feel like you need to maybe do some work to get more clear on the relationship before you're able to commit? Let's move on to number 2. So the second thing that I see very commonly, very similar to number 1, is that you're not clear on your standards. And if you are clear on your standards, you're struggling to stick into the standards. You are not able to align to the standards, or you're struggling with communicating them. So the answer, the solution, is to create standards. So we're going to do that today. I want you to really think about what it is that you are available for and what you are not available for. And this is where we start to cultivate standards. So setting non-negotiables and setting preferences are really important. Preferences are the things that you like, that you desire to have in a partner. And the non-negotiables are like, without this criteria, I am not able to move forward. Knowing those two things is key. because dating you is, I like to say, a juicy privilege. It is like a privilege to be able to spend time with you. And so I want you to understand, what does a partner need or have or should do in order to earn your time? So if you don't have standards and you don't have criteria, and sometimes I've seen too where the standards and criteria are too, not, I don't want to say too high, but maybe too rigid or too controlling, you're not going to have a lot of possibilities. And if you don't have criteria, you're going to be overwhelmed with possibilities. And you're going to be taking dates with that, cute bad boy, or with that wealthy Peter Pan who's just like never going to settle down. So when we lower our standards, what we're actually doing is saying, my needs aren't important. I'm actually just here for them, for what they need. I'm here to just show up and give. And the reality is if you're falling in between that 30 to 45 age range, we don't have the time that you used to have in our 20s. And so our 20s are for learning and our 30s are for growing. And I want you to grow and get really clear on what these non-negotiables, what these preferences are in your life. I want you to get clear on how you desire to be treated during the dating process, right? Like, how do you want to be treated? You have to be willing to talk about your boundaries, and you have to be able to trust yourself, and you need to be able to trust that the universe is always asking you, hey, Jacqueline, how serious are you about your desires? I think what's important for us to all understand is that your dream partner already exists. They're already out there. You can rest in knowing that your person is like breathing. Maybe they're 2 doors down, or maybe they're 2 states over. You don't know yet, but they already exist. And it's important for you to be able to find them and to be able to say no to the people who aren't aligning with what it is that you want, need, and desire in your relationships. So here's your action. I want you to make a list of the things that you most value in a partnership. I want you to get clear on understanding that your clarity is what's going to actually attract and magnetize compatibility with other people. You attract the energy that you exude. And so it's time to get brave. It's time to push yourself a little bit. And it's time to allow your sweet, sweet juice to get out there. So I want you to say goodbye to kinda, sorta, maybe men that you might have attracted in the past, and really start to say serious inquiries only, because this is the energy that you need to be able to put out there in order to magnetize it. So I want to give you some examples. So some examples of someone, of some ways to get really clear about partnership, about what you're willing to deal with and what you're not willing to deal with, is you might want to say, I want someone who prioritizes the relationship. I want someone who prioritizes me, and I want someone who prioritizes the relationship. I want someone who treats me with respect. I want someone who is able to say things, but also able to follow through, right? So someone whose actions match their words. Maybe you're wanting someone who is transparent and able to give you clarity about how they feel about you. Maybe you want someone who has clear goals and is passionate about them. So all of us are going to have different criteria based on where we're at in our life, but it's important to start with criteria. And I want this to not be confused with, I want someone who likes to travel. I want someone who owns their own home. I want someone who drives a Tesla or a nice car. Oh my gosh, he looks like he loves new restaurants. I love new restaurants too. Oh my gosh, he's got a cute golden doodle. I love a golden doodle. These are all like nice to have things, but they actually don't really say maybe that much about values. These are really like performance-based things. So if you're trying to check off things on a list about how this person is supposed to quote be or how they're showing up in the world, then that might not necessarily be relevant. What is most important is how this person is treating you and how they're prioritizing you and what that looks like. If he's a VP at a company that just went IPO, that's amazing, but it's also not a criteria. These are not compatibility indicators. These are what I like to call cute perks or attributes that somebody has. But at the meat of it, your inquiry should be about who this man or person is and how are they showing up for me, not what does this dude have? So I love that step. Step 3, the problem in this step is that somewhere in what I call your energetic blueprint, which is basically somewhere in your energy, consciously or unconsciously, you actually feel unworthy of your dream partner. And you're subconsciously focusing on evidence or excuses to prove it. So I want to share with you some examples. These are like some common examples of women that I have seen, specifically in this demographic that I've shared with you. And one of them is, I haven't really been in a real relationship in a long time. And so I don't feel like I'm qualified, right? Or, it's happening for everybody else. All my friends are getting married, everybody else, but like people that are less qualified or less attractive than I am are getting married, but for some reason, it's just not happening for me. Here's another example. Most people aren't saying this, but they're saying some version of this. But what the problem is they're saying like, I'm not lovable, or I don't deserve love, or when I do this, then I'll be lovable. So the ones that go really well with that is I know I want to lose some weight, or I'm not feeling my most confident, or X, Y, and Z. And anytime someone's like, well, when I X, Y, and Z, this is a red flag to me, because it's basically saying, I don't think love or happiness is available to me right now because I have 10 pounds on my body that I'm not comfortable with. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. You're lovable regardless of your income, regardless of your body size, regardless of many factors. You are made and designed to give and receive love. Another one is, people might do financial. Oh, when I pay off my student loan debt, or when I buy, when I put my down payment on this house, then I'll be ready for love, right? Again, it's like, well, not right now, but I'll be deserving when this other thing happens. Again, it's bullshit. Another thing that I've seen is I've never really been in a committed relationship. No one's going to want to be with me, or no one's going to want to marry me. And then some other examples, some that I shared last week, is if you've been through a situation, maybe with someone who cheated on you, or you had a traumatic end to a past relationship, then there might be a notion in your brain that's like, all men are going to cheat on me, or it's always going to end up like this. All guys on dating apps are only there to hook up. They really don't want to commit. These are all stories. And so the solution is that your assumptions, it's time for them to take some extremely necessary unlearning and relearning. It's time for you to flip the script. It's time for you to find a way to focus on what you want to happen rather than what you fear. I'm going to read you another quote. How you love yourself is how you teach others to love you. It's from one of my favorite poets, Rupi. But I love this quote because it really shows like we need to show up for ourselves in the way in which we are showing other people to show up for us. So if we don't believe in our ability, we don't believe that we're lovable, we believe that we're ugly, then that's the energy that we're going to attract. So it's time to get clear. It's time to love yourself. It's time to rewire some of these beliefs that you have so that you can start to create the beliefs that are going to support you in honestly creating amazing relationships. So here's the action. I want you to find and acknowledge the beliefs that you have that are causing you to feel anything but joyful, excited, empowered, and confident. And it's start to find evidence to disprove them. And it's time to start to create new beliefs that actually start to feel good. I want to invite you, if this step is something that really resonates with you, then I have a service that's designed especially for you. You can go to my website and you can find under the programs page, my relationship blueprint. And this is exactly what I do in this service. The most important thing that you can do to align your mindset with the reality that you want to attract is by taking these steps. It's by taking actions that, taking action only goes so far. If you're saying yes to dates, but then telling yourself, I don't think this is going to work out, or he's probably going to ghost me, that's a trash thought. So it's time to be positive and it's time to trust the process. And again, if you're wanting support specifically around this, you can reach out to me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and let's chat about my relationship blueprint, because that's what this service is designed to do, which is help you rewire and understand the limiting beliefs that you have that are holding you back from relationships in your life. So next is step 4. And this one is the problem is that you're not setting boundaries once you meet somebody that you're interested in. And the solution is to recognize where you're people pleasing and to build better boundaries. So I know that you've probably heard the terms people pleasing before and the term boundaries, but I want to just ground and root in what those terms are specifically for this episode so that the step makes even more sense to you. But I love to define people pleasing per one of my teachers, my human design teacher named Chris Prochaska. She always says that people pleasing is an attempt to manage everyone else's emotions so that you feel okay. People pleasing is basically a form of manipulation where you want to feel good all the time. So you're constantly in this place of overperformance so that everybody thinks that you're a star. And it's draining. And here's what boundaries are. Boundaries are these protective limits that establish where you end and where I begin. So clear boundaries are what enable individuals to honor their own needs and to support authentic relationships. I always love to think of boundaries as kind of like a house. So from an intimacy perspective, let's say you've got a house and you've got a yard and there's a fence, and then within the house, there's all these different bedrooms. So if you think of other people, there might be some people where you just want to wave to them over the fence, right? It's like, hey, Chuck, how's it going? Right? It's like, oh, I only want to really talk to Chuck across the fence. And then some people you might like have over for a barbecue. You might have them in your front yard and you might exchange a meal with them. And then there might be another group of people that you allow in your home. You allow into your intimate space a little bit more. And then there's people that maybe you would invite into your bedroom, or maybe you would invite into your library. So this is one way for you to really think about boundaries. It's like, how close am I allowing this person to get? Like, what feels safe? And how am I communicating the boundaries in between? So now that we've talked about the definition for people pleasing and boundaries, I want to talk to you about the solution for not having these in relationships. And so the solution is for you to really decide what privileges come with someone being in a commitment or directing intention with you. So the person who gets to see you maybe spontaneously, and basically knows that you might not be dating other people, is a person who has asked for clarity and intention. So I want you to just kind of think about that, right? It's like, okay, well, how am I allowing people into my space? Like, am I just like giving them access? Like, am I giving them a key to my bedroom when I've barely even had time with them in the front yard? Like, am I enmeshing my boundaries and creating dependency with people when I don't even know what they're about? So here's the action. If you've got the journal, I want you to grab it, and if you're in your car, I just want you to think about this, but like, what is the ideal scenario for how you want to be treated when being pursued in a relationship? Like, what do those steps look like? What does it take to get you from, let's just say, a dating app to a first date? Like, what are the steps that would need to happen in order to get from an app to a first date? And then what would it take to get from a first date? Okay, great. Things are going okay. Then you've got a second. Like, what gets you to a second date? What would you need to see? And then what about like a commitment? What would you need to see, and how would you need to feel, and what would you need to be in order to get there? Right? So how often is this person checking in with you? You know, what types of dates are you and are they planning for? How do they show you that they're interested in you? You know, is it only sex? Or is it, conversation? Is it good mornings? Is it checking in to see how that presentation went? How far in advance are they asking to see you? Is everything last minute? Or does this person have the ability to plan? It's not that there's a right or a wrong. It's just about you in your life being able to assess what actually works for me. And once you know what works for you, then it's a lot easier for you to be able to communicate. So what do you need in order to feel secure with where things are headed? And these are all really beautiful ideas of boundaries. Okay, what do I need in order to get to the next place? What do I need in order to give more of myself, or to give someone the keys to my bedroom? So it's important for us to make decisions. If a person is not honoring our boundaries, it's okay to let them know. And if their behavior doesn't change, it's okay to let them go, because letting them go actually helps to create more space for better compatibility. But if you're just like dating someone, leaving a situation, dating someone, leaving a situation without understanding what your boundaries are, what you want, and not communicating them, then you're stuck in a pattern, and it's time to change. And the last step, another juicy one, you guys. I'm going to tell you what the problem is. And the problem is that you're writing off potential partners after maybe it's a first date or a minimal interaction because you didn't feel, and I'm going to air quote, chemistry. So the problem is you're getting stuck on chemistry alone. This is a huge problem, huge problem. It might be that you're just like dating one particular type of person, or that's primarily what I see. It's like one specific kind of person. where you're physically drawn to them or energetically drawn to them, but that's really it. And before I give you the solution, I want to talk to you a little bit about what I am meaning when I say chemistry. So what chemistry is to me, and I guess the biological definition is that chemistry is this, I'll describe it as like a sexy cocktail of hormones, which are actually serotonin and dopamine, right? And when we rely on chemistry alone in relationships, it's basically like relying on alcohol alone for a good time. Initially, the drunken cocktail might feel amazing and blissful, but when it starts to wear off, connection and attraction for the partner actually start to dwindle. And what happens at that point is like our wounds start to reveal themselves. So here's the solution. In my Soulful Expansion and Relationship Blueprint program, you relearn about chemistry. And it's imperative that you understand that first dates should really be more like a first meeting where you both are figuring out if there could be chemistry. So chemistry can be present initially. And I would tell you that I'm always a little bit leery of those circumstances because it's so much about our past wiring. Chemistry can also be built. And I know it doesn't feel as good to have to build chemistry, but again, this is a long-term strategy for building connection and for building intimacy. This isn't a short-term strategy of feeling good for a couple of dates before something wears off. So I want you to let go of the idea that you have to have instant chemistry and fiery attraction. Chemistry actually grows as you open up and as you learn about each other. I love to think about intimacy as an onion, right? It's like where you peel back these layers of an onion over time to see what's underneath, to really see what it is that's at the core. I heard this podcast at one point, but basically, if people are driven only off chemistry, this podcast host, whose name is, I'm blanking on his name, but he does Create the Love. That's his Instagram handles, Create the Love, and he does a lot with boundaries and relationships, but he said it's like two scabs having sex. Which I thought was such a graphic and metaphorically perfect way to describe chemistry. It's like, oh, all these feelings of false intimacy that people can feel on a first date. And then when that falls away, there's nothing that's really left. It's like, oh, I thought I felt good in this moment, which maybe you did, but long term, it doesn't really lead to the intimacy, to the connection, to the emotional health and vibrancy that it is that you want. So here's your action. Go on first dates with an open and curious mind. I want you to think about and decide on what your first date deal breakers are. And if you see them, then it's a goodbye. If you go on a date with somebody who you could potentially see a future with, but you don't feel it yet, I want you to just like know that it's okay. And to also know that it's okay to feel a little bit disappointed that all of your energetic circuits didn't get blown up, but also know that that's actually okay. But it's time at this point for you to open yourself up for a potentially pleasant surprise. See how they follow up, see how you follow up. And if they're treating you respectfully, and if they are, and you're open to it, which I would encourage you to be, but I want you to trust that attraction grows over time. And that is so important to recognize all of this stuff about chemistry, because it's easy for us to go into an emotionally charged environment, want to feel good right away. So those are the the 5 areas that I want you to really focus on. So now what? Now that you know yourself a little bit better, now that you have a little bit more confidence in making this process easier, I want you to take some notes. I want you to write down like what your biggest takeaways are from today's podcast, what you learned, what are the things that you are desiring to action from listening to this. And if you feel like I am ready, like, oh my gosh, I'm so ready to be in a deeper and more meaningful and juicy relationship, and I am craving it, I applaud you. And I am so excited for you because seeking relationship really is about seeking joy in your life. And I want to tell you that you're the exact person that I want to support in really harnessing your relational power as you stay true to yourself. So I know that you're successful in your life. I know you're successful in your career. And I want you to also be successful in love. So if today's episode resonated, please reach out to me on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can email me through this podcast and let me know that it resonated and what you're really taking away from it. And if you're ready to take this to the next level, then I want to invite you to have a discovery call with me. So I hope today was helpful. I hope you were able to learn a lot about yourself, more about what it is that you're wanting in a relationship. And if this was beneficial, share it with a friend. And I am so excited to have you here with me today. I will be talking about attachment styles in our next episode, and I can't wait to share that with you. And we'll talk soon.